Shalom, everyone. Greetings and peace be unto you, and all those wonderful things that we like to say. And I'm just coming in for a few moments today before we go live later on this evening, just to kind of give a brief update and status. I've been going now for about 4 months. Last broadcast that I did here live was about somewhere around February 19th, I believe that's the date. And then after that, it was my intention to do the debunking of the book of Jashar, or Yashar, as it's pronounced correctly, as we're going to do later on tonight. But I didn't, and I just dropped off the scene for what was only supposed to be a couple of weeks, but it ended up being substantially longer than that. And that was because I needed to attend to some things that were very important and personal to me. And I think that I owe you all an explanation, so I wanted to make sure that I did that, because there are a few people here that are very faithful and loyal to those channels. So to those few, those faithful few, I'm doing this video really for you. There are some that come by every now and then, but there are a few core members, that are here quite frequently and that support the channel faithfully with their viewership and prayers and things of that sort. And I truly do appreciate you all. When I've noticed in the past that when I've taken breaks from social media or things of this sort, you kind of announce it and try to plan it, and it doesn't always go well, because you end up coming back sooner than you should or sooner than you need to. And so this particular time, I just did it without any announcing it. And really, to be honest with you, I hadn't planned it prior to. It's just something that kind of just happened. And as time went on and I wasn't hearing from anyone, I decided to take longer. It was actually a few weeks before I started seeing any kind of messages or emails from anybody asking how I was doing or was I okay. And so I took some time to get away from all manner of social media and other things of this sort to attend to some personal things that were going on with me and my family, and things that I'm still dealing with, but things, are getting better. Some things are still, as they were, and we just have to see what happens. But also getting away from the constant inundation of negative information, false information, and all of the distractions that come by way of social media, I found it to be quite refreshing. And I'm telling you, sometimes you need to take a break and just get away from all of this stuff. There's nothing happening so important on any of these social media platforms that you need to log in every day or every week or know what's going on. People will, get over it. And trust me on this, because this is something else that I've learned. They won't miss you as much as you think they will. Your presence is not as required. And I have learned that. Okay. And people will find a way to go on, or they'll find something new or someone new to tap into, and people do that. But it's necessary sometimes to get a break, because we're constantly bombarded with things across our airwaves now and through all other kinds of mediums. The news is, just now filled more with bad news than it is with any kind of type of good news. And in a world going crazy, you need to try to maintain your sanity so you don't go crazy with it. And when you have other things that are more important in life, such as, family members who are in need of your presence and your help, and then you also have your own things going on, there's only so many things that you can do. We're not octopuses, with 8 arms or brains where we can juggle and do a whole lot of things at one time. And before you have a breakdown, sometimes you need to take a break away from things, and you don't always have time to explain yourself, and sometimes it may not be necessary or best to do so, because that can be part of the problem too. Always feeling like you constantly have to keep up with everybody, and then you can become a little bitter or resentful too when you realize that you're trying to maintain certain relationships or keep communication flowing and going a certain way, but not everybody's trying to keep up with you. And you'll find out real quick, again, just how small you are in the world, and how much people really care about you. And it's not to say that they don't care about you at all, but everybody has their own priorities in life. Everybody has their own problems. Everybody has their own issues, and everybody has to attend to things as they come. Some people are more happy-go-lucky and carefree, throughout the world, and don't think about anybody else but themselves. But that's not the majority of people, at least that I deal with. So I don't want to think negatively of anyone. But what I will say too, one of the things about being in ministry, those of us who truly do this, were called to do this, and then we were trained and prepared to do this. It was not something that we chose. As Christ said, I chose you. You didn't choose me. And even for the vocation of the ministry, it's something that someone has to be chosen for, because the cost of ministry is very high. And when you understand what the cost is, you realize that it's higher than you're willing to pay. And the only reason why you do it is for the love of the Lord. All right. And if you love the Lord, you do your best to try and love the people, even when they don't love you back. Because again, Yeshua said to his apostles, if they've mistreated him, then how much more would they do you? And they crucified him. All right. And betrayed him. So we know that, people will do the same things to us, and you should not expect more loyalty or faithfulness out of people. All right. When we don't even give, when God himself, God Almighty himself, let me say it the way I mean it. He can't even force people to be faithful and loyal to him. People are going to come and go. And sometimes taking these breaks is also a good way to purge yourself of people that probably are not going to ride with you to the end anyway, or weren't that faithful, because you'll find out when you come back who's left, who's, dropped off, and who stepped off, and things of this sort. And a lot of times the people that do the most complaining are the people who did the less amount of supporting or contributing to anything that you were doing. And it gets costly, especially for, like I said, for those of us in ministry, because if you're going to be in ministry, it's a vocation of giving. You're not doing it to be taking, you're doing it to be giving. And what happens is you find that your relationship sometimes with the people that you're giving to, it becomes very, very unbalanced, because you're giving so much of yourself and your time, and very little is coming back into you, whether it be by way of encouragement, which I will say this, the encouragement for the minister is the highest currency that they can get, because it helps give them the strength to continue on. And there's been many times when I felt like just walking away, but my loyalty to the Lord kept me in, but then also an encouraging word from somebody, because you get more negatives oftentimes than you do positives. Now, if you're a lying preacher, like a lot of these false prophets that are currently using social media, you tend to get a lot more praise. And they get, not only do they get a lot more praise, they get a lot more substantial support in terms of finances and things of this sort that people contribute to them. And that dynamic has always been that way. The liars make the most money. They get the most support. People make the most excuses for them. People don't hold them accountable. But when you are a messenger for truth, as the old African proverb says, a teller of truth has no friends. You don't get that much support. You are in the minority, and the people that are supporting you are normally the minority. And you can give a lot of yourself. I do these PowerPoints and things, and I put a lot of time and effort into studying. I spend money on books. I use my resources and other things to put into the ministry to help as much as I can. And then I give away a lot of that stuff for free. Whereas I've had friends in the ministry who told me you should be charging, for the things that you're saying and the things that you're doing, which I understand where they're coming from. But I try to hold myself, to the biblical standard. Freely you have been given. Freely you've received, so freely give. And I try to do that, but the scripture does also says you don't muzzle the ox that tread out the corn. And so for the minister, who's constantly giving, because just to do a 1 hour, 2 hour, or 3 hour lecture or teaching that we do, well, it takes days for us to prepare for that. It takes hours and hours and hours beyond what the audience receives just in our preparation to do that. Just in the 30-minute delivery, that's still, a good day or 2 or 3 of preparation, because if you take your ministry seriously, not only do you study material so that you know what you're talking about, but you also prepare your heart and mind so that you're in the right state of mind and spirit to do the ministry, and you have credibility behind you, which means you got to spend time in prayer, you got to fast, you have to deny yourself certain things in order to do it. And I don't think a lot of people understand and appreciate what goes into it. And people they get complacent, and familiarity tends to breed contempt. In other words, where the value of the people serving is no longer held in as high regard anymore. People are so used to it now; it's expected. And if you're not careful, people can start to feel entitled. Like, this is what you're supposed to do for me. So, and I don't have to do anything because you're obligated to serve or help me. And that can make a person, start to feel unappreciated, unwanted, and you can get resentful if you're not careful. And when you start to feel yourself getting that way, then I say to any minister, it's probably best to take a break so that you can refresh yourself. You can't rely on the people to do for you what you need to do for yourself, because they're not you, and they don't have your calling. They don't understand, your struggle. But if you ever get people that do, it's great to have them as supporters of you, because they can help hold up your hands, like Aaron and when Moses got tired. They held up his arms so that Israel could win the battle. And we all need someone that can stand by our side and hold up our arms. It's just unfortunate that in this day and time, you don't see that as often. And that's because, too, some people are jaded by religion because they've seen so many ministers take advantage of people and things of this sort. And, and I get that, too. But for those who are sincere and that truly put forth the best effort, I've also seen from my father on, that they get the least amount of reward or recognition, or support. And it doesn't oftentimes come until after they're dead. And that was the same way it was with the biblical prophets, and even with Christ and the apostles themselves. They weren't truly held in their highest regard or esteem until after their, death, And so, it's a shame that sometimes you have to become a martyr, or die for people to talk about you or to think of you in the way that you actually live. But meanwhile, the false prophets, the wolves in sheep's clothing, who are out here telling these lies and holding these large, groups of people and things, on their live streams or even in these edifices around here, they're getting everything now, but that's their heaven. So while they're having their heaven on earth, and some of us may be having our hell on earth, remember, there is a true heaven and a true hell that is to come after that. And those who go through their heaven on earth are going to experience hell in eternity. And so for all the hell you might see and go through now, what is all the hell you'll ever see? Because there's a great reward waiting for you afterwards. And so I want to encourage the messengers that might be listening to this also, but as well to address, like I said, my audience and those who are listening, understand too, that as much as I love doing the ministry, I'm a human being. I'm not a Superman. I'm not a mutant X-Men or any of those things. And so, I have to take breaks. I have to get away. I have emotions as well. I get affected. My mind gets weighed down. My spirit gets heavy. And, I don't put the onus on anybody else to read my mind or understand or know me like the Lord knows me, but I would ask and say to any of you all that support a ministry or a minister to be much more considerate of the time and effort that they put in. Because while you're receiving freely, the work that the ministry or the minister is doing comes with a great cost. It comes with a great cost. And your support, all right, especially your encouragement, to let a person know that you actively care about them, what they're doing, it means a lot. All right. Even when you can, to be able to contribute to them financially, it means a lot. Not everybody needs the money, but the act of giving, it lets them know that you're also invested into the ministry and you're not just there for a free ride because they're obligated to serve you. And so those are a few things that I just wanted to say, but we're going to be back tonight, this evening, going live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Debunking the Book of Yashar. And we anticipate doing it all in one shot to where we won't have to do a part two. And then on the rest of this week and perhaps next week, I'm going to be on vacation until after the holiday, the 4th of July, and then which time I'll be back and we'll get started again. I may try to do another live stream this week or teaching. We'll see what happens. All right. But, I want to just say to all of you again that, we are back and we are expecting and anticipating to be going live again regularly. And hopefully some of you all that have gone away from the channel will return, and perhaps, other new people will join. In any regards, we're going to respond to those that are responsive, and we're going to try to serve as much as we possibly can. All right. And we'll go from there. So until the next time, beloved, and shalom.